Happy Friday the 13th, a good day for witches. Um, this first poem I'm going to read is the last poem in this collection that I did, and it really kind of describes why I did the collection. And in some ways, it embodies what this entire exhibit has been here at the Arts Commission Gallery and all throughout the city, and I feel honored to have been a part of it. And thank the gallery for putting it all together, and Barbara Mumby and the colleagues that she worked with to put this together. It was really an amazing experience for those of us who were in it and for people who got to see it, got to see the live faces of living Indigenous people. So the poem is called Sediments. It's essential we revere that moment when black, red, and brown come together, soils dusting against each other as they sift down a mountain. Wherever it begins, the upheaval reveals each strata below, richer for the revelation. And as the colors tumble downward, blending, they gather strength. This is called More Than One. I was the quiet one, except in school where I made the students laugh and the teachers cry. Why was I so smart, they'd ask. So smart-ass, they meant. To them, I squandered my talents for waitressing or typing by noticing history. I was the abandoned one, too dark for my mother, too fat to work in television, too light for the Black movement, too kinky-haired for the tribe. I was the mixed one who spoke of only a single ingredient, fitting myself into the times, Ungawa, Black Power, leaving the rest for the movies. I was the femme one who could have sex with a vice cop or a diplomat to put myself through school. As long as I wasn't on a street corner, it felt much like a date. I was the queer one with no discernible type except butch, black, white, brown, in no particular order. Then I was given a name and learned I was not a one, but many, carrying my generations wrapped like a precious blanket around me, woven from Iowa, Wampanoag, and Cape Verde threads, wearing my wampum, not trading it, making some laugh, some cry. I wanted to write about the women in my family who raised me. I was raised by my great-grandmother and my grandmother. And it started out as just a few poems. This next poem started out as just a little piece, and then it just kept getting longer and longer. It's called Pardo, which is a Portuguese word, and it can mean different things. It can mean dusty. It can mean all kinds of weird things. But it's searching for a name. Gracias, Argelina, sportsman. There was a name of distinction, many syllables full of life, named in gratitude for her father, Archibald, the horse trainer. He was mythology, except his mundane death, a kick from the hoof of one he was paid to bend to the saddle. The horse and he now bound together in the story his daughter tells me when I'm a girl who's been taught all Indians are dead. But not the Iowa, whose name might mean dust or might mean gray. The Iowa are here, if only in his grateful daughter, and the earth she has carried through the cornfields past the burial mounds to me. And here in the name sportsman, called for his training of horses that can kill. This makes him real, opens the eyes of the Indians in my head. Now I understand why horses frighten me. Relentless hooves, untamed muscle, huge equine eyes, full of mistrust, as if I look for retribution among them. Gracias, Argelina sportsman, small, not healthy it seemed, and losing her father so young, they married her off to another Indian half a nation away. And then he died, leaving her the one Iowa in the Wampanoag territory, where she was told all the Indian nations were dead, or at least there had been too many to bother naming. For Gracias, in a cold water walk-up in the black side of town, the memory of horses faded like ink from paper until the time came for her to tell me the story. Lydia, sportsman Mirandas, her daughter, now there's a name. Her father descended from Massasoit like an arrow. Mother and daughter, light of two nations, her name Lydia, called after one of the nieces who sat by the sachem, fit her like hips on a well-oiled saddle. For Gracias was solemn, Lydia sparkled. As Gracias toiled, relentless and solid, Lydia danced and sang, the tall red one on the end of the chorus line. The black ones, paradoxically fair, testified to the mixture required of entertainers. Mulatto, mestizo, pardo, no darker need apply. In the space between Iowa and footlights, even with the years that grew between her and the corn, between her and the horses, Lydia, her skin earthly, copper heated from within, kept her name always. She repeated the stories to me. Dolores Mirandas Minor Leclerc. There's a name that begins with sorrow. Dolores, child of Lydia, my mother. Although she discovered early the burden of a darker daughter was too heavy for her. As Gracias and Lydia were fire, warm as a hearth, and the stories told around them, Lydia was forever a girl, not to be encumbered. She was an infectious laugh, ringing in a room with too little furniture, no blankets or chairs, no place for a small child to hold on to. But in the end, she was the one to pick up the trail of her fathers. Through New England sand dunes and grasses, she sifted and surfed, clicking on strands of information while she still had her sight. Then touching and talking to those with the stories. She yearned for that history to fill the empty room inside, so pulled hand over hand, scaling the side of a mountain on a fragile thread until she found a name that was hers. There in cool Eastern earth, in the dust of history, among the faded writings on government paperwork, she found the Indians who were not dead. They saw her in the cornfields left behind. They saw her grandfather with his ropes and hooves. They saw all the women that came before. And taking away her sorrow, they named her Has No Horses. Has no horses, not because she was poor and blind, but in honor of her laugh. Has no horses because she had no need to go to people, they would come to her. Say her name out loud and hear her laughter, almost as warm as a story, big and round, full of texture and past. It will be remembered now that the women, my small nation, are all gone, and my name is still to come. Okay. And the last piece I'll read is called The Naming. 1. Deep, she said, not in a flaky way, as in cool, nor like we did in the 60s, looking for meaning in random signs or gems or yogis. Deep, as in waves cutting a channel through rock, shaping new land. We met at the bed of my mother, dying with the grace lacking in life. Mother who'd always loved strays more than me. She'd searched for our history and found a friend who guided her to grandmothers and to her name that had been stolen. When pilgrims came ashore, discovering and divining, they determined to turn us to the suicide they called religion and burned our language along with our homes. They harpooned whales with ease and forgetfulness, overplanted the soil, and swallowed lives like starving children. But their great task, making the Bible into Wampanoag to complete our deaths. Lessons upon our heads meant to bury our spirits and our bodies. Still, today it yields one silver thing, a dictionary to revive our words and put them back onto the lips of our children. 2. The East is cold. Once an idea is frozen, it remains forever the same. Or it cracks and is lost, as it seemed we're the Wampanoag, but we were not. Now we turn toward home with the care of a horse staying on its path, the language of its road well trod. We gathered in a New England yard, many colors and ages, to find my name, imagining the land 400 years ago, before synthetic fibers and false fires. At our center was a tree which hadn't borne leaves in many years, yet it stood firm. Branches spread like a fertile net. Its spreading arms glistened with possibilities. There she decided, deep, cutting channels, yielding abalone, sand dollars, and starfish. Still water, for moving slow through stone, leaving my trace embedded in rock, in sand, and on the pages of lives. Still water, who touches all shores, past and present, in my journey to the ocean, even as I am unmoving. Lifting my name from the air that whistled through the bare branches, she lay it across my shoulders, where it now sits, as if it were always my own. Ka'ana Tugamuk, still water. Thank you.